All right, recording in progress. We are ready to go. Welcome, everybody, to episode 77 live from my drum room. It's great to be here today, and my guest is an old friend of mine. We're going to talk about this, but I'll just tell you, we go back 40 something years, and it still kind of blows my mind to think that, we have this recent collaboration, and we go back as far as we go back. It's pretty mind blowing. But my guest today is David Frangioni, and he is the CEO and publisher of Modern Drummer Magazine. And as I say, I'm very excited to have him on the show, and we're going to talk about this recent collaboration you've been hearing all about everywhere. It's been all over the news. The fact that Live from My Drum Room is now basically the Modern Drummer podcast, and all that fun stuff. And we'll get into some of the particulars. We're also going to give away some free stuff today. Here on the show, we're going to give away a free digital subscription to Modern Drummer Magazine. We're going to give away a digital book. I don't know which book. Maybe David can tell us which book. And also a free pass to the MD Festival. So, and we'll talk more about all that. So, cool stuff. If you're tuning in today, you picked a great day to tune in. So, thanks for watching, everybody. And I see we do have some folks watching. Fantastic. Again, I don't know why my my closed captioning comes on every time. I don't know why. Okay, I got it. I do want to thank everyone for watching last week. My show with Joe Franco. Fabulous time. And now, if you missed it live, you'll be able to watch it this coming Thursday, March 17th. St. Patrick's Day, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It will drop on moderndrummer.com on their YouTube channel and also on their podcast platform. And I'll put those links up later if you don't have them, but it's Podcast One is where Modern Drummers podcasts live. And you'll be able to listen to the podcast, watch the show with Joe and myself on YouTube, and that will be this coming Thursday, March 17th. What's more fitting than St. Patrick's Day for Joe Franco and myself, a couple of fine Irishmen that we are. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and don't forget to tune in. And again, I'll just remind everybody that what's going to happen moving forward is my shows will be on Modern Drummers platforms, and then about 3 or 4 weeks later, you'll be able to see them on my YouTube channel, and as part of my podcast that you already know about. But they'll be first on Modern Drummer. You'll get the exclusive first viewing with Modern Drummer. So, but download them in both places. I don't mind that at all. We love that stuff. All right. And one last thing I want to tell you is this coming Sunday, March 20th, my guest at 2 p.m. Eastern Time will be my old friend Russ Miller, fantastic drummer, session drummer. Played with a million people. We'll talk about that. He's a well-known in the drum industry. He's well-known as a drum designer, having developed many great products for various companies. And we'll talk about Russ's long career, and the guy never stops. So that's going to be a great show this coming Sunday, March 20th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in for that. All right. So I think that's all my initial sort of announcements and housekeeping. So without further ado, I know he's waiting patiently. I'm going to welcome my guest, CEO and publisher of Modern Drummer Magazine. He's even got it on his shirt, David Frangioni.
Hey, John. Great to be here. Hello, everybody. Hope all is
Welcome,
well.
David. Yeah,
Thank
all right. Thank you for taking the time out of, what I know is a busy day to chat with your old pal for a little bit here. So thank you.
No, it's great. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And, I was just telling everybody, it's been exciting news this past week since the word got out that,
Yeah.
that
Wow. I know it's
live,
huge.
yeah.
It's huge for us, too. We're modern drummers. So excited. I mean, this is just awesome. And for me personally, it's on multiple levels, right? Because you and I go back, over 30, well over 30 years. I met you when I was 14 years old. And it's hard to believe, but it's true.
I
My
know.
mom always loved you, by the way, Rita, because remember at that time she had to bring me to either Freddie G's or Wurlitzer because I couldn't drive.
I
And
remember.
and you were helping us. And who would have ever thought from those humble beginnings where everything would travel on our journey from then. And then we get to today with Modern Drummer and all you've accomplished. And of course, this podcast, which I'm a huge fan of. And to be able to collaborate and really ironically, after all these years of knowing each other and being good friends, this is our real first collaboration, but it's on a big stage with
Yeah.
a big brand. And everybody on the team is so excited, John. I know you have a lot of close friends on the executive level of Modern Drummer besides myself, but everybody's excited. And I hope from what I'm seeing, a lot of the, our drummer friends and podcast viewers are very excited. So,
Great.
here we are. We're going to just take it to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited too, and you're right. I've received, and I want to thank everybody for all the incredibly
Yes.
positive comments and messages and all that sort of thing. It's been great,
Yes.
and
Thank you.
yeah, and it's yeah, I'm excited too. And it's funny you mentioned that because I thought about it after we started reminiscing that first phone call we had a few weeks ago, and I was thinking about how you would come in with your mom, and I'm not just making this up, David. I remember you being wise beyond your years. Like you say you were 14, and that makes sense. When we first met, I was at Wurlitzer from like late 79 into the, before Freddie's until like 83, 84. And
Okay.
so you would have been, 14, whatever, 15.
Yeah.
And there were certain people I'm still in touch with that I remember from those days that would come in, but like you knew a lot, a lot of kids your age didn't, you knew about like, I'm looking for a Remo pinstripe head, or like, you had very specific gear type um, knowledge, that a lot of people, younger players didn't have. In today, kind of don't really, I hate to say that, but I sound like the guy, get off my lawn. But anyway, I remember that. So it doesn't surprise me to see you here now where you are and, as,
Thank you.
as modern drummer.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I appreciate the kind words and, it's, some of it's mentorship, you know, getting guidance from people like yourself who, there were a few people early on, my parents being first and foremost, number one, great home life, loving, supportive. We didn't have any, means, I mean, we were very, very modest to say the least. And my mom and I mean, we would travel by bus and subway. So that kind of gives you a snapshot that we really started from square one. But, that stuff is secondary when you have a really supportive family and a lot of positive influence to become educated, to become knowledgeable, to do the work. These are values I learned at a very, very young age. So I appreciate you recognizing them. And then when I met people like yourself and a handful of other industry luminaries, I'll call them, in that period of early to mid 80s, maybe even a little later than that, like 81 to 86, 7. I would seek out guidance and knowledge because these are people that I looked up to and that had already had a lot more experience than me, and they could share guidance and information that would otherwise take me a lot longer, right? Because it took them a while to learn. Now I can, learn from that. I always say, if you want to know the road ahead, ask those who are coming back. And that's essentially what I was doing, even though it was really, in the spirit of just ambition and wanting to gain knowledge at that age. And it's never stopped. I mean,
That's
to this
great.
day, I'm learning so much every day.
That's great, man. Yeah, I totally get that too. And I had a similar, I mean, my mom, I rest her soul, I mean, I think about how she used to drive me to band practice in the next town over. I grew up in Melrose and my band
Mhm.
rehearsed in Stoneham. So, when you're 14, you're totally reliant upon your parents to get you places. And, I was playing gigs when I was 13 and 14. And I think back now and I think, like, and I'm sure you can relate to this too. 11 o'clock, 11:30 on a freezing cold Friday night in February, I'd be
Yep.
packing my drums up at Stoneham High School after a gig, and my mom would be there picking me up. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd do
right.
that for my kids.
Unbelievable, right? I
Yeah.
so get that. I think about it all the time. You know, when as you get older, as we get older, we grow wiser. We think about things from the past that we never stopped long enough to really consider
Right.
and really kind of process. You know, we were just so in the moment, especially as kids, right? But as we get
Exactly.
older, it just keeps going and going and going, and you're just every day is just so filled. And then you finally take some moments to think back and just really process what really happened. And absolutely the selflessness and the incredible love and support that our parents showed each of us. And I'm not, on a soapbox or anything. I'm just sharing the fact that in the context of what we went through, where we lived, where we come from, over 6 months a year, it's freezing cold, there's snow, there's ice. Those are a lot of elements that parents don't want to risk their or their kids' lives, and
Yeah.
especially for a gig, in my case or your case, a high school, in my
Yeah.
case, a lot of crappy clubs. These were only important to me and my
Right.
band members, right? But they made it important to them and really helped, fertilize, the seeds of dreams. And I think that's the beginning of, what turned out in each of our cases to be a really, really interesting journey with a lot of goals that we set out accomplished and a lot more to accomplish. But it all goes back to our parents. And
Yeah.
there isn't a day that goes by that I don't pray and honor my mom Rita and my dad Silviano, who were just the pillars.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, me too. You're exactly right. I think age gives us that ability to reflect more clearly and really see it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I got to tell my mom and my dad, how much I appreciated that because it like you say, in the moment you don't, and you might get in an argument with your mom, about something,
Sure.
and but then years later you realize, wow, and I agree. I mean, those gigs, like, and all those episodes and events were building blocks to my life. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't have pursued the career that I pursued and ended up doing if I didn't start off as a drummer, and I,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had any of that if it wasn't supported by my parents. So yeah, you're
Without
absolutely
a
right.
doubt.
Yeah,
And our
yeah,
lessons, our education,
yeah,
huge part of it. I mean, when I wasn't old enough to drive, and I wanted to study with Joe Morello, which happened to turn out sequentially, where it was just before I could drive. So I had to take an airplane. I had to take People's Express, which, if anybody remembers that
oh
airline, I'm
yeah,
sorry to hear that you remember it, because I'd go to Logan Airport and you'd wait. They left every hour if they went on time. And
yeah,
it was literally made Southwest look like a private jet. Okay. I would sit there for 6 hours waiting for my name to be called. It was just, I'll spare you the details, but just
yeah,
tell you that it was a nightmare both ways. But they let me do it and experience it. And they drove me to Logan and dropped me off. We had one car, but they would, I usually took the lesson on a Saturday. So my dad wasn't, he would only work a half a day. So he would take me to Logan, and then I'd come home and usually have to take the bus or subway because it was so late, because I would take a 3 hour lesson with Joe. But the
wow,
point is that, when you're 15 years old and you can't even drive, and they're supporting you and trusting you to be able to handle getting on that plane and going, it was, again, and, they drove me. I don't know if you remember, Alan Dawson used to teach in Lexington,
yes, sure,
right?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
studied with him starting when I was around 12 or 13. And, of course, my dad had to drive me. There was no public transportation there. And he drove me every lesson, waited an hour lesson, drove me home. I mean, these are all things that
that's
are so
huge.
exceptional and so supportive and loving. And I can't say they wanted me to be in the music business, but they let me pursue my dream. And same with my brother. My brother's had an amazing career. He chose academia. He's Harvard grad and has had an incredible life in medicine and cancer research and other things that he's been very successful at. And this, again, it's just my brother and myself in our family. And they did the same thing with him. With both of
Yeah,
us, their two children were everything to them. So I guess what we hope everyone will get from this, John, is that, if you're a parent, you're making a huge difference by giving all you can to your kids and really encouraging them to pursue their dreams and trying to keep them straight and narrow with some boundaries, because they certainly were all about discipline,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
it didn't stifle the big dreams.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's great. And a quick hello to John Tempesta, who's watching right now. I just want to say hi to Johnny.
All
Johnny
right, hey
T.
John.
Good to see you, brother, and got a good group of folks watching. So,
Great.
I want to kind of jump around a bit here too, because I remember, gosh, it must have been. Well, you'll know once I say this, but so I worked in retail until the mid '80s, and I moved out to LA, and I went to work for Simmons, and that was my first kind of step into the industry, and then I came back in the late '80s, and I remember bumping into you. It had to be was it in the early '90s when you started working for the Aerosmith guys?
89.
'89.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah. It's
'89.
right,
Okay.
right. Pump was being finished. So
Okay.
it was, yeah. So I would have run into you anytime. Well, the first live show I went with them was the New Year's Eve show of that year. So
Yep.
89 going into 90 was like the first show I went to see Aerosmith as a member of their entourage. So
Yep.
anytime from
Yep.
then on. But yeah, we used to bump into each other and it was crazy,
I
because
know.
we were in the fast lane. And can you believe I was just with Joe Perry on Saturday night? He was we both were speaking at he performed at a rock camp at David
Yes.
Fishoff's Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and I did a master class there. And I stayed and hung out with him for the night while he was playing with the bands and got to catch up. I mean, we're on text all the time anyway, but to see him in person and give him a hug and be able to, just spend that personal time with COVID really kind of stopping that the last couple of years. He and I now go back working together over 30 years, 89, so it'll be about 32, 33 years.
Yeah.
And still going strong, so what a collab that is. I'm so grateful to have that, have that group as a client and have that group as a group of friends. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I was huge. I've always been a huge Aerosmith fan since I was old enough to discover rock music. So to be in their inner circle and work on all those records and tours and projects and whatever, during what I consider one of their heydays, which was, Pump through Just Push Play, which is really all of the 90s,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
incredibly exciting.
It had to be. Well, that's what I recall too. And I was at that New Year's Eve show because I had
Oh, okay.
started at Zildjian in '89. So I
Okay.
think we were chatting, and then I realized, like, holy shit, like, you're like way in the inner sanctum of these guys. Like
Yeah.
you had put in Joe's studio and
All five
eventually
guys.
all the
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
remember Joey Kramer telling me going to Joey's house and him. I think I had told him that we knew each other from a long time ago, but bless Joe, he didn't always remember things. He'd go, "Yeah, this guy David Frangioni, I can put you in touch with him or something. If you want to have some work done, he's great. Whatever." And I said, "I know, I knew him longer than you did, before you did. But,
Yeah. True.
um, but that's cool. Yeah. So you ended up working with all the guys,
Well,
independently, and
yeah.
then with the
Yeah.
whole band.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, my role was kind of interesting, and this has happened with a few different artists where I have usually someone, especially in the music business, is in one lane, right? So this guy built the studio, or this guy did our back line, or this guy helped us with our, pre-production and kind of our in-house guy. This guy built our home theater. This guy did our smart home automation system and our security, so our homes are safe and connected. Well, those five different guys are me with them.
Yeah.
So sitting in the studio and working with them on these records and watching Get a Grip go from scats and riffs to, an album that's sold over 20 million copies, and then doing the same thing on Nine Lives and Just Push Play and this one and that one, being in all these different lanes kind of at the same time is what I love to do. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is that I don't love just one thing. I don't love just being a technologist or just sitting in the studio and working at the console or just doing Pro Tools, just doing editing, just doing mixing, or just mixing immersive, et cetera, et cetera. I have all these passions. So I've pursued them and still do to the highest level. And when you find clients, whether it's Aerosmith or Shakira or Ozzy or whoever it's been, who have multiple needs and they feel comfortable working with you and they trust you and they like you, and they're like, well, the guy does a great job, so why use a different person, even though
Yeah.
Typically you would, but in this case, you don't need to. So I've been lucky to have kind of turnkey projects. And that's what I love to do. And I love to do it at the highest, most challenging level.
Well, that makes perfect sense too, because we know from dealing with people like that that, like you say, you summed it up. If one person can handle all these aspects, why would you have two or three, or as you say, five different guys when you could just go to you and someone, a known commodity who they trust and has done a great
Right.
job? It's like, yeah. So I could see why, because I kept bumping into you at that point when I moved back from LA, and I'd see you around town, and you were, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm working for this guy, or I'm doing this, and then I feel like that I hadn't seen you for a while, and I saw you at the NAM show maybe 5 or more years ago,
Okay.
and I don't know if that's when you first got involved with MD, or it was before you maybe bought it completely.
Oh yeah. Well,
But
I was asked to be publisher in May of 2019.
2019, okay. But it was
Yeah.
maybe before that I saw you at NAM, just hanging out. We just bumped into each
Because we
other.
might have been talking about it. I talked to Isabel Spagnardi about it, probably for 6 months. So NAM of 19, it would have been
Yeah.
in conversation. So we might
Yeah.
have talked about it.
Okay. I know. I
Yeah.
know. We had. I'm jumping around. I know. I remembered that I'd reached out to you because someone said you might have a Gretsch gold-plated snare drum that you were looking to sell. One of those.
I remember that. And then
Yeah.
I tracked it down, but you had already tracked it down at the Chicago Drum Show.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
we
You.
kind of, I mean, we're both so freaking connected that, it was a joke. I mean, I'm coming from this side and you're coming from that side. And then we both are standing there with the same drum going, isn't this great? You're like, yeah, but I just bought it. So we're good. I'm like, all right, well, that was the drum. So
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
we each have one.
I know. Yeah.
Because I shared with you when you were looking for it, I said, man,
You
that
weren't
drum
looking.
is that's so
Yeah.
special. That's
Yeah.
such a special drum.
I know. I know. I'm so happy. It's 3 years this May that I went to that show. I was invited to do a clinic or a presentation there, and in the course of being there, I had dinner with Steve Maxwell one night, and I mentioned that was my dream or something, and he said, "Oh, I can get. I had knew a guy who's selling one, at the show or something." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So yeah, that was
Amazing.
very
They don't come
fortuitous.
along too often. You should
No,
come
no.
down. I don't know how much we've talked about this, but you should come down to the drum museum, the private drum museum that I have as part of my foundation in South Florida. And it's also now, of course, the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame. And visit. And we've got that drum. We've got a lot of other
Yeah.
drums, a lot of really classic drum kits that you'd love.
I will do that. And I mean that too, because I had that in my notes. In fact, that I wanted to talk about the museum and that is it nearby to where you're located, or is it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
all in
Okay.
this general South Florida area. It's by
Okay.
invitation only. And
Great.
of course you're invited, but that goes without saying. We could even do an episode from there and like check
I
out
love
some
it.
of the drums and stuff. I
I
mean,
love it.
it's a lifetime of putting this collection together. To call it a dream come true would be very accurate. Someone who's such a huge fan of drumming and loves the instrument and the legacy of these kits and just some of the kits that have defined so many people, inspiration.
Yeah.
They've just had
Talk
such an
about.
impact. Carmine's realistic rock kit, the
Yeah.
Ludwig maple, and Carl Palmer stainless steel ELP kit, custom engraved, one of one, that has been, has its own fan club, the kit. Alex Van Halen's last kit, the 2015, that a lot of people saw at NAM or Sweetwater Gear Fest years ago. I mean, it's a very, very iconic kit. I mean, these are, just amazing kits to be able to share. We use the museum for charity, right? Of course, we
Right.
have friends and family, and we host events and want to inspire, our community. And the initiative is for charity. The initiative is to take a Make-A-Wish child who is, has got a challenge, and their dream is to have a master class with Todd Zuckerman or Jim Riley, or whatever their particular dream is, and bring them into this environment. And there's the kit that this drummer played for so many years on stage, and here's the drummer, in the case of some of these drummers, and really make it a special day. And it's amazing, John, because we've had it going now for about 5 or 6 years. And of course, it's all based on donations. It's all based on, anybody who is inclined, please check out FrangioniFoundation.com, and you can donate right from the website. You can see the video. You can see what we're all about, right? Hold on one second, guys. Hold on. I don't want to, okay, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. This is what it's like to go live. So, so it never stops here, but then again, I don't want it to. So, so we have, we want to take donations. There's a video up there. There's all kinds of information about what we're doing. But what's amazing, okay, the payoff to all of this is that I get texts even to this day from people who have been there 2 or 3 years ago, who are, who say to me, happy Thanksgiving. And there's so many things that have gone on for such a period of time that, you don't remember every single, event, sure, every meeting, every instance of the museum. And I'll get a text and someone will say, I still dream about that day 3 years later. Happy Thanksgiving. So the gratitude and the impact that it makes has occurred,
Mm-hmm.
that's what my dream was for it, that would be the result that would happen. But, you have to see it actually play out to know that it worked, and it's working. So just really grateful for it. We're inspiring a lot of kids. And as you might remember, I grew up, as an eye cancer survivor. Most people who have retinoblastoma, especially at 2 years old, they go blind, and so the fact that I only went half blind and, and spent the first 10 years of my life in and out of hospitals and dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, and of course, being half blind most of my life, that really, that's part of my life. That's part of my history. And so now I can give something back for the kids that are going to go through the same struggle I went through. I didn't have anywhere to go, of course. I mean, I was just happy that we had a home. Now to be able to take somebody suffering and say, and I know firsthand what that feels like, and be able to say, okay, today there's no pain. Today there is no trauma. Today there is joy. Today there is celebration. There is inspiration. Today is a day you'll never forget. So every day from this day on, take with you this moment and bring a smile to your face, no matter what the challenges are, no matter what the health setbacks might be. And when you're a kid, it's huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so here we are, and it's working.
That's great, man. That's so positive. I love it. And what you just said too, I mean, I've had a little taste of that, in that I get people, on Facebook maybe, or just that I'll see somewhere that remember visiting Zildjian, 30 years ago.
Yes.
And
yes.
and the NAMM show's a great place for that too, where I'll see someone and they'll go, I came in for a tour and you took me, or I met you or whatever. And not that I mean, you, like yourself, you meet a lot of people and you don't remember every single thing, but when someone reminds you and you realize the impact it made, it's huge. And I love that, in any situation when you or me or anybody can make a positive impact on someone like that, and they still remember, an experience. I have people tell me that, I came to one of the Steve Gadd clinics and you brought me back and introduced me to Steve, and my son got a picture with him or something, and
it's huge.
It's huge.
We can take it for granted as industry guys who have virtually unlimited access, and we are with people that are, really important, and provide a lot of inspiration to the public. And we're blessed to be in a lot of inner circles. And so, but I never take it for granted. And the impact that it has on people when you can bring someone, to meet their idol, to have that moment. And Zildjian's such a great example, John. I mean, I don't have to tell the audience watching this, what your legacy, has been. It's the impact is known by all. But I will share with them why I am so aware of that is that when I was 15, Lenny DiMuzio, God bless him,
Yeah.
He brought me to the Zildjian factory just because he was being a good guy and he saw me out there hustling, and there was no reason for me to be able to go there. I mean, Neil Peart had been there just before, and Steve Smith, and like just these giants that, here I am, just someone playing the local clubs who has no business being at the Zildjian factory other than I loved drums and cymbals. And I just couldn't believe this moment. And then a little bit later, I ran into Lenny at a Buddy Rich show. Buddy was playing in Linfield in a hotel ballroom.
Yeah.
And I went up to look at the drum kit in between his sets. And Lenny was standing there just random. And I said, Lenny, so great, man. I can't, what an honor to see you again. And he goes, hey, kid, you want to meet Buddy? And he grabs me and brings me back to his tour bus. And I meet Buddy Rich. Again, I'm like 15 or 16. It was like right after I saw him at the factory. So he still kind of remembered me.
Yeah.
And these are moments that you never forget. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I know how many times you've done that. And man, you don't have to, but I'm telling you, the impact has been huge. And I'll say thank you on behalf of all of the other people that you've done that for, because I know what the experience feels like, and it's gigantic and impressionable, especially at a young age. But at any age, really, it's super special. But at a young age, it just marinates, and you never forget those moments. I did a lot of that. I've introduced a lot of people to Aerosmith, in the day when they were touring, and I was hanging with them a lot. We were, very, very active. In the 90s, the band was a different kind of thing because, the album tour, MTV, it was a different time than today, right? So even though they're super busy and doing great, it's different. And so I would, bring a lot of, friends in the different cities backstage, and the guys were always so gracious and so amazing at just treating everybody right. But I still get thank yous for that. This was 20 years before texting or 15 years. People had to like call you or track you down on your answering machine to say thank you. And it's just great, man. It's what it's all about.
That's great. Well, thank you for saying that. And anytime I'm in the same sentence as Lenny DiMuzio, I'm a happy man. So, and I had two similar experiences with Lenny as well. When I, way before Zildjian, working at Wurlitzer, Lenny brought me back to meet Buddy a couple of times, and certainly didn't have to. And yeah, I know what you mean though. It like you said, it stays with you forever. I'll never forget those experiences. And so we started to talk about 2019 was when you got involved with MD.
Yeah.
As publisher.
Right. Lifelong reader, subscriber since I was a kid, probably since 81 when I was mailing postcards in. I remember when they went to monthly. So I guess that was long time ago.
Yeah,
they were quarterly, then bi-monthly, then monthly. So I discovered them at a very young age. I've been a reader of theirs my whole life, but then, was asked to become publisher in 19. And that was the beginning of a new journey, John.
Yeah. So, and I want to remind everybody too, great group of people watching that the folks at Modern Drummer are going to pick a random comments for the prize winners, the digital subscription, the book, and the MD Festival. So thanks for all these great comments. Keep them coming. And there's going to be 3 lucky winners here that will be randomly selected. So anyway,
awesome.
I want to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck. Comment, everybody. Ricardo's going to go up near the end of this, and he's going to pick the winners, and it'll be great to give something back.
Yeah. Oh, and I have to tell you, David, Therese DeMuzio is watching, and she said, "Bless you, David. He loved you." Lenny's.
I loved him, and I love you, Therese. You're amazing. Yeah. I remember meeting you. You were playing in bands at the same time, and you guys are like part of my family, even though we were always so busy and didn't get to see each other much. You and Lenny, God bless you.
Yeah. Ditto. She is family. Therese is, big love for me too, Therese.
Yes.
Right at you.
Who would have thought, Therese, when your dad brought me to the to Zildjian, that I would be the publisher of Modern Drummer, however many years later. I mean, that would, John, that would have been the equivalent of telling Lenny that I was going to be the president of the United States and the president of some other country at the same time. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. And so neither was going to happen. But then to turn out to be, who knew? I mean, life just takes you on so many twists and turns. It's just unpredictable, just the message is just stay positive, work incredibly hard. I didn't take really a proper vacation until I was 45 years old. And I worked every day up until then. From the time I was 13, played over 1,000 gigs as a drummer before finding music technology, studied with Joe and Alan, et cetera. So the point is we could go through a whole deep dive of all of these events, but what it comes down to is just perseverance, belief and faith, and, just working relentlessly towards goals and never being satisfied when one was achieved by setting an even higher one simultaneously. And that really got us to the point where I could end up in a place where I would even be considered to be at a high level of modern drummer, never mind publisher. And then, as I know we're going to talk about, then, acquiring the magazine.
Yeah. And and had you, because, I don't know the answer to this question. Did you have a background in publishing, or had you had some experience? You had some experience in that prior?
Well, the backgrounds that I have, not specifically owning a magazine, but I have had several very successful companies, right? Some of which I've sold, some of which I still own, but all of which have been successful, thank God. And so I have a formula for that, and that I've, figured out and apply. And I also have done a lot of writing for magazines. I was a contributing editor for EQ magazine, for Surround Pro, for a number of others. So the magazine world, is one that is, on the inside, I'm very, very familiar with and very, very experienced with, and the same with running a business. So what was great about becoming publisher at Modern Drummer is that I got to really get inside of what was going on there and figure out how do we improve it. And, you got to remember, you have to understand the history of Modern Drummer on the inside to kind of get to where 2019 was, right? So Ron Spagnardi, the founder, and, his wife, Isabel, of course, co-founders, but Ron was the guy out front, and he was the brainchild behind it, as we all know, legend, innovator, impossible to walk in his footsteps, all the things that he innovated for the drumming community that we still are, in practice today and evolving. He died in 2003, right? So he founded the magazine in 77. He passed away in 2003, and he had a succession plan with a gentleman named Bill Miller. So things kind of kept going the way that Ron had, designed and envisioned. But then Bill Miller unexpectedly passed away in the mid 2000s. So from that period of Bill Miller passing away to 2019, the magazine didn't have a publisher. And there were a lot of setbacks internally that, occur because you don't have a publisher. Thank God the forward-facing aspect of the brand was strong because it's one of the strongest drum communities ever, and rightfully so. And it's in an important drum community. So that was kind of self-preserving, if you will, and kind of keeping the momentum. But internally as a business, there were some real challenges that not having a publisher created. And Isabel, Ron's wife, and as I said, co-founder, realized that. Billy Amendola, who's been with the magazine, he just left us recently. He had an incredible 25-year run.
Yeah.
And he did so much at the magazine. So he's been a friend of mine for forever. And he introduced me into the equation. He's the one who told Isabel, look, there's someone who has all the components here, technology, which Modern Drummer really, really needed to embrace at that point. Magazine, business, drumming, this is kind of a rare hybrid. So Isabel said, well, all right, that sounds great. Let me talk to him because we got to do something. We have to improve how we're going. And she realized that the ship needed a captain. And so I met with her, and, over the course of 6 months, we figured it out. I became publisher. Now I'm under the hood, right? So now I really can get in and start understanding what's going on here in the business of modern drummer. And then that led to February of 2020, where Isabel, wanted to she's in her late 80s. She wanted to make a decision as to, where the magazine goes next. And I sat down with her and I said, Isabel, what's the most important thing to you? And there were a number of answers, right? She could have said, well, to just keep the brand going, but we can shrink the staff, or I'd like to just sell it, or I'd like to just fold it and let it be this or that. There were many choices really she had. And we talked about them all. And she said, David, the most important thing to me, there are two things. Ron's legacy, which he spent his entire life around modern drummer, and the meaning that it gives to the drum community, and how important this is, because it's really the only community that's since 1977 has brought drummers together. So I really could, I could appreciate both. They were both pretty heavy and important, and I respected that. I said, okay, then in order for me or anyone to buy this, that's how they have to proceed. That's what they have to embrace. And I did, and I do. And that's how we went forward. Now, as you can see, only a brilliant business mind such as myself would buy a magazine 3 weeks before a worldwide pandemic shuts the entire world down and basically destroys any idea of a plan or a business idea. So it was, to say that my timing was bad would be like saying the Titanic hit a couple of bumps.
Yeah, who knew? I mean, I know, and I'm not making light of it. I'm not. I mean, it's just, it's. I know what.
All we can do is make light of it at this point, because it is what it is. It was what it was. I mean, this was, we had this whole plan, John. I had all this time prior of publishing the magazine and then purchasing it, and then it closes, and I had a plan to the day from when I closed on the magazine to July. That plan was daily. That wasn't just then I had, of course, a 2-year out plan, right? I had an entire business thesis ready to go on how this was going to evolve, turn around, etc. That plan, look, this is what I had to do with the plan on or around March 19th. Here's the plan, okay? Because it absolutely is worthless. Now it's every magazine for themselves, as they say. And now we need to hold on to the ship, guys, because nobody saw the storm coming, but here we are. And, but we're here and we're getting stronger than ever. And if you look at, a big part of it has to do with collaborators like yourself. We're working with, worldwide industry luminaries who are out front in their craft, and we're all collaborating and just want to strengthen the drum community. I mean, as I said earlier, my brother is working on a cure for cancer. I'm celebrating drummers. Okay. So which one is a lot of fun and should be exciting and should be the break that we all need every day, and the joy and the collaboration that this instrument brings? Clearly it's drumming.
Right.
And that's what we do. And I, yes, it's a serious business, but the outcome of it isn't. The outcome of it is celebrating drums and celebrating the guys who are out back behind a mountain of gear that you barely see most nights at the show, but they're monsters. They're people that are inspirational. There are people that have worked their whole life to perfect this craft that is so challenging to perfect at any level, never mind the level that so many of these drummers play at on a daily and nightly basis. And modern drummer celebrates that, and people are inspired by it. And our reach is huge and our impact is huge. And I needed to keep that alive.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. And I salute you. When I realized, I didn't know the details of all this until recently in terms of the timing of everything, and it really, when we had that conversation, that initial conversation, it really made me want to be involved in terms of doing what I can, whatever little bit of help I can give to the sort of end result of keeping the magazine and just keeping this connection that we've all, so many of us have grown up with, this magazine and its connection. Yeah, absolutely. And I, as I mentioned, I was fortunate to have a relationship with Ron. I haven't seen Isabel probably, well, I went to a few festivals after Ron passed away in 2003, but I went to Ron's funeral, and he was just an amazing man. And I'll just say that once I got to know him, I remember the first couple of years going to the festival. I just would see him, and I knew who he was, but I was almost not afraid to approach him. I just wasn't sure. I was pretty young. And then I remember one time anybody who remembers going to the festival, we all camped out at this hotel. It was the Fairfield Radisson or something, down the street from the college, Montclair College, where the festival took place. So all the industry people would be in the hotel, and Ron would hold court in the bar, and he'd be at the bar, and if he saw you, he was buying you a drink, and he'd go. And I remember
Fellow Italiano.
yeah, fellow Italiano. Oh yeah, and the food when they had the banquets. I'm sure you've heard all these stories that have the banquet on Sunday night. It would be like the biggest Italian feast you and I ever had times 1,000, and they'd have food during the day, of course. And Isabella would be, John, eat something. Come on, eat something, But I remember Ron, like coming up to me and just, and I'm not imagining this too. Like he knew who I was. He knew about me. He knew what I did, what my job was. And again, I was kind of a newbie at that time, but he paid attention. Like he wasn't just the guy at the magazine that was, sort of invisible to the industry. He was.
Yeah, true. Yeah, his legacy is really just, filled with these stories. And I'm so glad that you were able to experience it so firsthand and be, a part of his world like that, right to the end. And, we honor to this day, we still grow from his vision. We're very much in sync with what he innovated and how we not only preserve it, but evolve it, because you have to evolve it. That's what he did. If you look at what Ron started with in 1977, and you look at in his lifetime through 2003, what he did for drumming, invent festivals, a whole category of drum books, all that he did with the magazine, all that he did with how he brought master classes and communities together, and on and on and on. These are all things that today are just, second nature, but he was first. Yeah. And so we're very focused on innovating in the same spirit that he did, and, taking what he accomplished and growing it, and then taking it into 21st century, right? Because, he never really lived past, into the digital age. So now we've not only had this huge digital age occur, now we're going into another huge sea change with Web 3.0 and the metaverse. And, we're really into NFTs, and we're focused very much. We have a 2-year plan for NFT rollouts as, consistent with what the music business in general is doing and the publishing business. So these are all things that Ron would have done, if he were with us today, because those were the ways that you take drumming and you take community and you magnify it. And then that community just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're all learning and being inspired from it. And that's the whole point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No, you're right. I mean, that's a very good point too. And that it was, you wouldn't even, you couldn't really call it the digital age, really, right? 2003 was still, we were just sort of approaching
the internet. Right.
The internet.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people were just starting to use email when I think about it.
Right.
It was all
no iPhone. The iPhone didn't exist.
Exactly.
Right. And so it feels like 100 years ago, but it was less than 20.
Wow. I know. And so how do you see things? What are some of the things you're looking to do now, David, besides collaborating with the best podcast in the world, which you've done very well, I might add.
Thank you.
What kind of things can we look for with the magazine?
With Modern Drummer, well, we have a great president, Dave Hakeem, who's we brought him on to run the book division, which is clearly a huge initiative of ours, but he's now president of the company and doing a brilliant job. And we have a brilliant team, brilliant CTO, Jason Mailer, I could sit here and mention every person because they all are, should be recognized. But in the interest of time, I won't. I'll just say that the team is amazing. And so with that team, we have, led by my wife, Carolina, and myself, and our two boys, Danny and Felipe. We are, we're innovating a whole new series of drum books called Legends. We have a whole new series of drum books coming out on, different, courseware and method books, of course. And of course, everything in digital as well as print. The magazine is still a monthly magazine digitally. Print wise, we're combining the bindings right now. Print has been a complete nightmare. So, we just had to find a way forward while being responsible to our readers and advertisers that the monthly magazine would occur as expected. So digital, we can control that. So,
right.
And thank God we've been able to migrate and gain a lot of new readers in the digital lane. So that strategy has worked, but it's been very, very painful getting there. So that's going to keep growing. All of our web initiatives, we did our 20 and 21st festivals in 2020 and 2021. 20th festival was virtual, celebrating Neil Peart's life.
Yeah.
And 21 was kind of a celebration of perseverance, again, virtual. So this year in 22, it looks like we'll be able to go back at least to a hybrid of live and virtual. I don't think we'll be stuck in virtual only again. We'll have to see when we get there, but we'll do another festival. That's been a huge, huge initiative for us. And of course, NFTs is the biggest, growth category that we're really focused on. It's so important. I've been a collector of various things, like we talked about the drum sets. For years, I collected baseball cards. I mean, I've had all kinds of passions in collecting. So NFTs are right up my lane because you've got collectability and you've got business and you've got music. So we're going to do, John, we're doing some really cool stuff. You're going to be able to do some drum solos on drum kits that you would never be able to touch in the physical realm. We're going to have some amazing avatars. We're going to have some amazing content that is just really going to excite, today's group of players and tomorrow's, both in and out of the metaverse. So drumming is really, about to go up another notch in the digital world. And we have a number of other collabs that we're working on, but that's just, kind of a high level overview.
Wow. That's exciting. It's exciting.
It's very exciting. It's great for drumming, which is all that matters. Modern Drummer exists for drummers by drummers. And that's it, man. It's all about the drummers. It's all about people who love drums. And it's all about celebrating 12 times a year. Whoever's on the cover, it's like handing an actor or actress an Academy Award. And that's a great honor. And the readers, are what give it that cachet. But the drummers that earn that cover, think about, we both know it's a tireless lifetime achievement. You look at Buddy up till the last note that he ever played before he went in the hospital. It was still ridiculously phenomenal. It was still unbelievably filled with musicality, speed, agility, virtuosity. And he was in his 70s, so it's like this instrument just brings out every ounce of our passion and our love for what we do. And so Modern Drummer is all about celebrating that. And you can really say it's as simple as that, even though there's a lot that goes into that celebration.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And I was just going to say, when you mentioned the legends, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag a little bit on this. I got a phone call the other day from one of the legends, my old friend Steve Smith.
Oh, what a book that's going to be, man. Tell us about it. It's amazing.
Well, he was telling me about it. He was really excited about it and telling me about it. And this is what I think is so funny. And I laugh about this sometimes because Steve is like one of my oldest and dearest friends, going back. But when I think about when you and I knew each other, first met 40 years ago,
right?
Steve being the drummer for Journey was like one of my absolute biggest heroes. One of my, like a giant. I met him for the first time when he came into Wurlitzer. He was doing his solo project called Not Bad for White Boys or something like that, which, this sort of pre-Vital Information fusion band that he had.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. So he remembers the band. He remembers vaguely coming into Wurlitzer, but not meeting me. But anyway, so here's Steve calling me the other day and pitching the idea he said, I'm doing this Legend series with Modern Drummer. And I said, I've heard a little bit about it. And he was telling me about it, and Peter Erskine and Danny Seraphin and some of the other
Kenny.
guys, Kenny, Chad Smith.
Yeah.
And he said, so this is Steve. He said, I was thinking it'd be kind of cool if you interviewed me as part of the, to talk about the Legend series. And I said, Steve, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. I mean, and he started laughing too. He said, yeah, I know. I'm trying to sell you on it. I'm like, yeah, it's going to take a lot of selling, as you can imagine. So I'm excited. So my point being that look in the future for, this, to me, it's a perfect setup to have Steve on the show. We did something a couple of years ago, but this would be so timely. And Peter and Danny, and hopefully those guys didn't lose my number. I don't think so.
No chance. No, that is symbiotic to say the least. And we have
Yeah.
Alex Van Halen's first and only drum book is the second Legends.
Wow.
That was something. All the Legends, thankfully, are alive except for Neil. Neil being our first one, which was really a celebration. No one's been on the cover more than Neil. He had 9 covers, broke the records, which is no surprise. But honoring his life and legacy was really one of the inspirations behind Legends. So he was first, fittingly. But all the Legends since then are drummers who were with us. And getting Alex to do a drum book was just unbelievable. I mean, no one can believe that he did it. But he's a great friend. He's a great guy. The book's amazing. And then, of course, Chad, and as you mentioned, and just this series. And again, John, this is what Modern Drummer is all about. It's all about bringing exclusive experiences that people can take with them forever, be inspired by, learn from. And these Legends books, these are the books that when I was 14 and I went to Wurlitzer and you had just 2 rows of music books on that metal stand that they were all, right? They were in that that ascending order, and that, those were your books. And of course, Stick Control was in there, whatever else back in the early 80s. But there weren't many.
Syncopation.
And of course, Syncopation, right? And Jim Chapin's book. And, but there weren't many. And I just can imagine, if I had seen these books there, I literally, would have probably had to rob a bank at the time, but I probably would have done it to get these books, because these are just, they're the books that we all want. This is the view that we want. We want to be led inside. We want to celebrate these legends. We want to learn about their drum setups and get transcriptions and read their stories and be inspired by it. How much is there to learn from? I mean, look at the path that these drummers have been on and what they've created, not only on the instrument, but in their life, both personally and professionally, right? I mean, it's one thing to see the drummer play, but it's another thing to understand all of the different elements of this. There's so much to get from it, and to put it in a $20 or $25 book, it's a no-brainer. It's accessible for everybody. So it's really something that I'm real proud of the team, and we're going to just keep doing the Legends books. They're a huge success for good reason. And it's just great to celebrate the greatest drummers, man. And there's a lot of legends left, I mean,
that's right.
It looks like, you think about the billions of people on earth and the many millions of drummers, and there aren't a lot of legends, but in the scope of putting a book together, there's a decent number of them. And so we always have one go, and the Steve Smith one, like you said, is just incredible. I remember going in 1981, seeing him for the first time live, other than some video I had caught here and there. I saw him live playing with Journey on the Escape tour, and they gave him that big drum solo. It was just right. They sold out 3 nights at Boston Garden at the time. The only seats I could get were behind the stage. But then what they did is they had open backstage. But what it turned out for me, it's ironic, right? Because they're the cheapest, worst seats. But I was right behind Steve Smith. So even though as a concert, right, it was perfect for me. Watching a concert, it sucked. It was horrible. But to see Steve Smith play was incredible. It was like, I was right there. And that was life-changing, man. And so now for you and I to be collaborating with him and be a friend of his and learn from his genius. I worked on 2 other projects with him prior to Modern Drummer. I did a drum sample library with him called Rhythmic Journey. And then I mixed Vital Information global beat into surround sound with Kevin Elson, who was Journey's producer on all those records and did a lot of other great stuff. So how everything, sometimes the industry feels like there's, a couple of hundred people in it when there's, millions.
I know.
Right.
I know.
So it's amazing the little inner circle and how it all comes around, and great lesson for everybody to, just always walk forward in integrity, because whether you have to try to do that or whether you can condition your approach to that, either way, end up in integrity, because the industry's small and everybody knows everybody. And it's just a good thing when everybody's just operating on a good vibration.
Great advice. And I just have to, before we end this, I have to tell you one quick funny story, honest to God. Not long after you saw Journey from behind the stage, the police, it was early 1982, the police came through on the, what record was that? Was it, I forget. It was the record that had,
was it Ghost in the Machine?
Ghost in the Machine, every little thing she does.
Okay.
Yeah, Ghost in the Machine tour. The Go-Go's opened.
Oh, yeah. I tried to get tickets to that. No kidding.
Well, I was
couldn't
at the
get
show.
tickets.
Yeah, Boston Garden.
Yep.
I want to say it was like early 82, maybe springtime. And same deal. I got there realizing I had an obstructed seat technically from, sitting behind the stage. But when the band came out, I could see Stewart from behind all night. And, and I think there are a couple of times when maybe Andy and Sting might have turned around. But for the most part, if you weren't a drummer, you were like bummed, but I was like, oh my God, this is the best. I can see everything Stewart's doing. And it was awesome. Yeah.
It is. I mean, I saw him on Synchronicity, and I was able to get tickets stage left, lower section, where I was like eye level with his drum riser and on his side. And there's a 3-piece, right? I could see the octobans and the hi-hat work. And I couldn't believe it. I always knew, of course, from hearing him so much and analyzing the Police records, I knew he was incredible. But honestly, tell me if you got the same impression live. When I saw him on Synchronicity, it was like absolute legendary. This was like when I saw Buddy, when I saw Neil, like this, there was no difference in terms of the level of his play, even though stylistically he's so different, but he was remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I left there. I remember like being my band at that time. I think we were a 3-piece band. At that point, we'd become like a power trio, and I was so inspired just by as being a huge, I mean, from all the records, but then you see him play and you're like, oh my God. Yeah. Just
right. It's incredible. His musicality, his chops, his creativity, his precision, man, the whole night, all that, he was just nailing this stuff. And, you try to remember a lot of it, and then you go home and trying to play any of it like he did, you realize how extraordinary he is as a drummer.
Yeah.
Love
absolutely.
It. Yeah, those are the memories. And that was a great show. I do remember distinctly trying to get tickets to that. But I did finally get them. In fact, you know what I had to do? I saw Synchronicity at Providence Civic Center. I had to go to Providence. I couldn't get tickets in Boston. But at that point, Synchronicity came out. I had my driver's license. So I went to Providence and saw him. But yeah, man, those were the days. Just that whole band was on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so funny you say that too. And without, us local guys can relate to this, but that was the sort of resourcefulness you had to do in those days, because for whatever reason, they'd sell out 2 or 3 nights at the Garden, but you could get tickets in Providence, like an hour away. Like why that was, I mean, it's a small town, I know, but
it was still sold out, but it was easier to get the tickets. Yeah, it was a smaller town, and they probably had so many New England dates or whatever, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you got to be resourceful. Well, David, this has been so great, man. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you, and
man, there's so much more to cover though. We're done already. It's like we have so much catching up to do. I guess we'll do round 2 some point. But let me just say to everybody how grateful I am to call you a friend for 40 years, to have you now collaborating so closely with Modern Drummer. When you asked about projects and I talked about NFTs, other things, I want to make sure I also clarify that our collaborations are a huge part of what we're doing going forward. The public knows about the podcast now, obviously, but John and I have some other great things up our sleeve as time passes and our schedules align. And there's going to be some great things coming up. And so stay tuned for that. But thank you everybody for watching, and thank you especially John and the entire industry for continuing to support Modern Drummer and be behind us. It means the world, and we hear you loud and clear.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, David, and amen to that, everybody. Yeah, thanks for watching today, and thanks for watching the show. Thanks for supporting Modern Drummer. This show, if I'm correct, David, this will broadcast a week from Thursday, the 24th of March, 1 p.m. Eastern
Yes.
time,
Yep.
on MD's YouTube channel and on their podcast platform. So, if you're watching this now, you can watch it again in about a week's time. So,
And then forever.
and then forever and
Yeah, it'll
ever.
be
So,
up there. And thank you everybody. I hope everybody got some good insight from our chat today.
yeah, absolutely. All right, well, hang tight for 1 second, David. I'll end the live stream and then we'll say goodbye. Thanks for watching, everybody. And I'll see you Sunday with Russ Miller at 2 p.m. Eastern time on this same Bat channel. David Frangioni.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're out.
How
I'll
was
end
it?
the recording. Oh, it was great.